Well, hello and welcome in, everybody. How are you doing? I hope everybody's doing well this Thursday afternoon. Welcome into another Idea Academy stream where we talk about ways to make your stream, your job, your relationships, and your life better. Welcome into those who are here. Head of Steel, I see you. Non-failing streamer man, mods, VIPs, and fellow learning from their mistakes enthusiasts. We got Wit. Welcome in. Welcome in. So you may have seen the clickbait title today. You may have seen the clickbait title, which is "This channel is a failure." You may have looked at that and you may have said, "I know that's a clickbait title. Got to be talking about something else." But bait taken, mission accomplished. But the question is it true or is it false? Is this channel a failure or is it a success? Let's take a look. Let's take a look really quick at some statistics here. Let's see. So here, oh, this is neat. There we go. All right. Bait taken, mission accomplished. Let's go. So this right here, what you're looking at is these are the statistics for the channel year to date. And you can see this is January 1st through today, 235 days. Depends on how you assess success. That's true, Rose. That may be what I'm getting at, but we'll see. Hello, hello. Welcome in, Kitty Cat. How are you? Good to see you. So you can see this year, not too bad, right? 17 average viewers. That's 17 average viewers, 400 followers. Not too bad. I have the revenue grayed out. I'm not worried about it. This is not a question about monetizing the channel. Cat was just working out. What? Cat, did I miss a workout stream? What? So it's not about the money, right? But it's about the measurement of success. So if you look at this year to date, I'm sitting at 17 average viewers. Little spike in May there. Got a little bit of love in May. But otherwise pretty flat, right? In fact, if it wasn't for the spike in May, you could tell we'd be much closer to the 15 viewer mark here overall. We are basing success on number of viewers. Shame, I'm making a point here. I'm making a point. Not a stream, but she isn't going live on time because she wanted to be healthy. Oh, that's fine. That's fine. You could be healthy. All right, so what we want to do is we want to compare this year to last year, right? Because what we want to see ideally is we want to see growth in some area. So if we look at it year over year, this is still this year. This is last year. Mitchie D, welcome in, dude. Thank you for the sub. Happy 15 months, my friend. Sorry, getting ahead. 15 is crazy. You're absolutely right. Tal, hello, welcome in, welcome in. So last year, you can look and you can see over the entire year of 365 days, we also hit 17 viewers. And look at the follows, 1,112 follows. Now, again, some of this is going to be skewed a little bit. But the question is, if year over year, I've gone from 17 average viewers to 17 average viewers. So I've seen no growth in terms of viewership on the average. If I've seen no growth in terms of viewership, and I've seen technically a net decline in terms of followership, because if we want to measure some numbers, we've got those couple of numbers to go by. So if I've seen no growth in viewers and I've seen a decline in followers, we just finished. Nice. And the question is the channel a failure? Is the channel a failure because there's no measurable growth? What do you think? And I'm not looking for you to, trust me, I have a point here. I'm not looking for you to pump me up. I'm perfectly all right. I'm just trying to make a point, and I'm wondering what your thoughts are on this point. My chest and arms are going to hurt tomorrow. That's good. Go get those chesty armies. Do it. First of all, is this a failure or not? Now, on the one hand, it's absolutely a failure, right? If there's no growth year over year, then 100% you have to look at it in one aspect as a failure. I have failed to grow year over year. That's absolutely true. No, because you have the community of people who tune in all the time. Now it is a failure as a business. Now it is a failure as a business. True. So if we look at the growth measurement, we can say 100% I have failed in that area. I have failed to grow the business, such as it were. And since business is designed for growth, then we can say that we definitely have something that we need to be concerned about here. Nope. Are you enjoying your stream and feel that continuing to stream is a good choice? If yes, then not a failure. It all depends on your goals. That's also true. It does all depend on your goals. But again, like I've said in the past, I think that there are a lot of people who can stream, who can enjoy themselves, and that's just what they do. But I also think that sometimes if you're intentional, if you want to be intentional about it, that you've got to have a message, you've got to have something that you're putting out there, and that should include growth. That should include growth. So if you look at it in a purely just numbers growth perspective, 100% channel is a failure. So the question is, if the channel is a failure on that standpoint, what have I learned over the course of the last year? And then also, where are the areas where maybe I have succeeded? So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to give you a framework for looking at things in kind of an even and balanced way. Because it would be really easy for me to look at that slide, and again, for effect, right? For effect. I'm not looking for reinforcement here. But it's really easy for me as a person who knows business to look at that slide and go, yeah, that's not good. You can't, that's unsustainable. You're going to have to grow more. Otherwise, you're out of business. And on the other hand, I know that there are some other things, right? There are some other goals that we have in this community. Our goals are to support streamers. That report doesn't show us how many streamers got to be affiliate this last year because of the efforts of the community. It doesn't show how many people joined and have actively participated in the Discord community. It doesn't show how many people we've interacted with in the various different games and things that we play, right? So none of that is measurable. So, but if we look at sheerly the growth portion of it, we can say, okay, there's a failure here. And then we can dissect it a little bit. But before we do that, and I do want to do that, I want to get into what I think went wrong. It went wrong in this particular area. I want to get to why I think I got the results that I did and how I think I can improve those results in the future. But before I do that, it doesn't show your bits to growth. It also doesn't show your bits to growth ratio. That's true. That's true. And I like I said, I did intentionally mask the revenue as well, because that's not the point. The point is really not the point is not monetizing or not monetizing. That's not the issue I'm trying to make. I'm just trying to say, what happens when you have a metric when you don't hit what you wanted to hit? What do you do? How do you look at that? How do you view it? Because that is the essence of how we deal with failure, right? What if I told you that the thing that you most want to avoid may be the thing that's most important for you to keep? So let me tell you a story. This happened back in the 1970s. So back in the 1970s, there was a man, his name was Art Fry. A guy named Art Fry. And Art Fry was at a church choir rehearsal. And as he was at the church choir rehearsal, I don't know if you've ever been in a choir, but in a choir, you have usually a book that's got music in it. If it's a church choir, maybe it's a hymnal, right? And so typically, when I was young, it's been a long time, but what we would do is you would take this and you would mark the various different things that you had to sing. So you had different bookmarks. But Art Fry had a problem. And Art Fry's problem was that he would put a bookmark in the hymnal, and then he would turn the pages, and then he'd turn back to it, and the bookmark would fall out. He could not get his bookmarks to stay in the hymnal, no matter what he tried. They kept falling out. Cue the "but did you die" meme to find positive outcome to get metrics. Exactly. Change your strategy. It's all about changing strategies, right? That's always how we're going to overcome things. Art Fry could not keep his bookmarks in his book. And then Art Fry remembered. He remembered something that a colleague had done recently at his job. See, at his job where Art Fry worked, one of the things that they did was they made adhesives. They built adhesives. And one of his friends at work had undertaken the task of trying to build a really, really strong industrial adhesive. Like his goal was to make a super strong glue. And no matter what this friend of his had tried, the glue came out really, really, really weak instead of really, really, really strong. And the reason that Art remembered this was because at this place of work, at this employer, it was the practice when something didn't work, when something failed. It was the practice not to hide it away, not to put it in a drawer, not to pretend that it didn't work, but to share that with other people. And so this friend of his name was Spencer Silver was his name. Spencer Silver had shared out, hey guys, I tried to make this super heavy duty adhesive and it absolutely failed. I got this super weak glue. I guess we're going to have to try something else. And Art Fry remembered this while he was at his choir rehearsal. And so what he did is he went and he got some of that super weak glue and he coated just the top of the back of a piece of paper. And then he stuck that to his pages. And what he found was the glue was weak enough that it would come off the pages easily without tearing them, but strong enough that it would stick to the pages and made itself an effective bookmark. Now, you've probably guessed already the end of this story because the company that Art Fry and Spencer Silver worked for was a company that we call 3M. And the product that was invented by these two that is now sold billions of copies all over the world. It's one of the most recognized brands in the world is the Post-it note. Exactly right. So that is the story of the Post-it note. The Post-it note is literally the result of someone sharing their failure with other people. You were way off. What were you thinking, Head of Steel? I'm curious. If Spencer Silver didn't share his failure, we don't get the Post-it note. Now, maybe that's not, maybe the world hasn't changed dramatically because of the Post-it note, but how many times have you needed a Post-it note? I need them all the time, even though most of what I do is digital. I used one just earlier today to mark a book. So if he doesn't share that failure, then we don't get the Post-it note. But more importantly, if he doesn't have that failure in the first place, we don't get the chance to share the failure and we don't get the Post-it note. I use them daily. Absolutely. Post-it notes are great. They're the best thing since sliced bread. And I don't know how sliced bread came about, but I do know it's a relatively recent invention, like 1930s, I want to say. So where am I going with all of this? How does all of this connect to the failure of my channel over the last 24 months to grow beyond 17 viewers on average? Well, I have two choices. I had two choices. When I sat down and looked at these metrics today, I had two choices. My first choice was to find another topic to talk about. To say, you know what? We're not going to talk about growth. We're just going to talk about community building, because that's important, right? And I think we've had tremendous success with community building here on this channel. That was one direction I could have gone. But another direction would be to talk about the fact of the matter that this channel hasn't grown in 24 months. That I'm still where I was in January of last year today. And the fact of the matter is, if I believe that I have a message, and I do, that other people need to hear, Whether it's in these streams, it's very, it's very in your face in these streams. It's very out there. You guys come here and you get the core of the message, right? Not everybody wants that. I never expect growth of significant growth in this Thursday stream. That's not what this is about. This is kind of the one for the faithful, right? You've always got that moment for the faithful. If you have those concentric circles, have you ever heard this model where you have concentric circles of people where you have the core in the center, and those are the people who are 100% committed, and then you have the committed that are just outside that, who are committed, but they're not diehard, right? They're committed to the cause. And then you have the crowd on the outside of that, and that's everybody else that's kind of peripherally attached. And so this Thursday stream has always been and will always be for that core. Maybe some of the committed pop in from time to time, and maybe this is what draws them in. They look at this and they go, "Hey, you know what? Actually, maybe there's something to this. There's something to streaming with values. There's something to streaming with a purpose. There's something to approaching my life with intention." And maybe they come in and they become part of the core. But really, this is for, it was built for, and it will always remain for the core. The question is, how do we grow that crowd? Because if we don't grow the crowd, there's no way to bring people into the committed. There's no way to bring people into the core. And if I believe that my mission is to change the world by adding value to other people, I have to approach more people to add value to them. I really like your Thursday streams too, learning how to incorporate it into your daily life. That's awesome, Kitty Cat. That's why I do it. Because every once in a while, I'm not going to give you a gem of wisdom every week. I'm not smart. We've been over this before. I'm not a smart man. But I do know what love is. And so every week, I'm not going to have a great wisdom to bring you. I may not even have the most encouragement to bring you. There are times when I get down, and maybe I'm not going to be the most encouraging guy. But what I do want to give you every week is the belief that whatever is going on out there in your life, that you've got some level of control over it. There are some things that will always be out of your control, and we have to let those go, right? We talk about this. This is what leads us into overthinking, is constantly processing the things that are out of our control. But I want to encourage you to continue to look at the things that are in your control. Encouragement isn't always best. It's not always best. It's not always what we need. It's often what we need. And it depends on what your individual frequency is, what the frequency is that resonates with you. Some people resonate with the frequency of the motivator, who's the encourager, who's the one who builds belief in you. And I need that a lot. I need an encourager to put belief back into me, because I haven't always believed in myself. Historically, there's been a lot of my life where I just haven't believed in myself. And that's one of the things that I've had to overcome through the course of my life. But sometimes I also need the frequency of the challenger. And the frequency of the challenger says, you know you can do better. It's time to step up and do what you really can. And that's kind of the frequency where I'm in with this growth thing. I looked at this and I thought, you know what? You can't be satisfied with this. It's not okay to say, well, you know what? I've got 17 viewers per stream. Most people don't. So, hey, you know what? I'm good, because I've got more viewers than most people have. There's the challenger in me says, no, you can't stop there. You can't let that become a ceiling. You've got to seek continuous growth, because if you're not attaching more people to the message never gets further out than you can reach, right? Hey, Ember, welcome in. So today, I'm operating a little bit in that challenger mode. All right, what are you going to do? Speaking to myself now. What are you going to do to learn from what could be called a failure? What are you going to do to learn from this failure? And how are you going to make sure it doesn't happen again? How are you going to make sure that 12 months from now, you're not looking back and you're still sitting at 17 viewers, right? What are you going to do different? So here's the framework. What I like to look at, and if you're taking notes, I don't know what's wrong with you. You're taking notes on a stream, but if you are taking notes, here's what I'll give you. Let's look back and look at, first of all, what could I have done better? What could I have done differently? What could I have done better? What didn't I do that I could have done? Very, very simple in this particular case. Over the course of the last 12 months, I have let my entire social media presence completely drop off. I have no social media presence as a streamer right now. My only contact with people is directly through my streams and through the Discord. I let my Twitter/X account go dormant. I haven't done anything with my Instagram account. I only very rarely post anything to my YouTube channel. And so I let that completely drop off. Well, if I don't have that presence outside of what I'm doing here, then how can I expect anybody to ever discover me? Because if I'm one of however many million people on Twitch, nobody's ever going to discover me on Twitch, right? It's very rare that it's going to happen. So number one is I recognize you post on your TikTok sometimes, not very often. The Jurassic Park was great on YouTube. So that's another thing, right? Is what's my content strategy? Have I thought about my content strategy over the last 24 months? No, I haven't. If you look at my streams today, they're the exact same types of streams I was doing 24 months ago. Now, maybe that's okay. I went back and I ran a little bit of analysis on that, and I saw that Saturday still is doing really well for me. It's by and large, it actually has grown on Saturdays. Mondays have actually shrunk. And then the other Fridays have stayed about the same. And then Tuesday and Wednesday are they're community days. So this is a thing for the core, for the people who are really, really committed. Wednesday at the beer review stream, it's not designed for discoverability. It's a chance for us to hang out, right? So, and that actually has shrunk a little bit too. I take in all you say on these streams and try to put into my own life and video. Have really helped me want to stream more and do more. Well, good. I'm glad, Ember, that you're inspired, because that's what I want to do. I want to inspire you to do better. And that's why I want to take this and go, hey, listen, guys, I want to argue from the standpoint that not only am I not perfect, but I'm not growing either. Right? So the question is, what do I do if I want to grow? If I want to grow, and the goal, understanding, and I think all of you understand this, is never growth for growth's sake. I don't want to just have 1,000 viewers in stream that aren't chatting, right? That doesn't make any sense. If that was the case, I would have left all the bots in from last year. And I know people who do that. They get bot follows and they keep them because they're like, well, they're just placeholders for the followers I'm eventually going to get. And I have a problem with that philosophy. I think that inflating that number doesn't really accomplish the truth of what you're trying to accomplish. But that's a topic for another day. So the idea is never be accountable to somebody else. That's another thing, right? Is what is my level of accountability? If you've known me for long enough, you know that IDEA, right? IDEA Training Academy. That's my company. It's up on the screen. IDEA stands for I forgot what it was, and I wrote it. It stands for identity, which is knowing who you are and who you want to be. It stands for disciplines. That's the everyday work that you do to get better. It stands for execution, which is making the big choices in the right moments. And then the A is for accountability. So the question is always, who am I accountable to? And am I accountable to myself? Because without any sense of accountability, sometimes execution falls through. And as a result, my execution fell through on the social media channels. And as almost a direct line, I haven't seen any growth. So that's one thing. One thing that I recognize as a mistake over the course of the last 12 months. And again, this is sheer transparency, guys. And I'm not in a space where I'm beating myself up about this. That's not the way I deal with failure. The way I deal with failure is I look at it, I try and figure out exactly what it is I didn't do, and maybe what I did do, right? And then correlate those two things to a strategy that I can use to do something different, to try something different. The most successful people say fail fast and often, because the more you do the wrong thing, the faster you do the wrong thing, rather, the quicker you'll get to the right thing. So, okay, well, I let some things slide over the course of the last 12 months. Okay, so I know that I've somehow got to get back on top of my social media presence. That's got to be something that becomes important. Now we come to Head of Steel's question of accountability. How do you become accountable? How do you become accountable for something, for anything, really? But when there's not someone directly looking over your shoulder. And if you want to start a business, or if you want to use streaming as a business, this is a question you must ask yourself. You have to ask yourself, where does my sense of accountability come from? Because it's unlikely you're going to have somebody who's watching you and saying, hey, when are you going to put a schedule out? Hey, how come you didn't release a video this week? Hey, how come you're not engaging people in Discord? Right? It's nobody's going to do that. People are just going to leave is what's going to happen. And that's what's happened to me. Right? So how do you build that sense of accountability to yourself, and then above and beyond to yourself, to somebody else? And usually it's the other way around. Usually it's easier to be accountable to somebody and then eventually to shift that accountability over onto yourself. That's one of the strategies we use in coaching. Is I'll go in and I'll say, hey, I'm going to come to you every week and ask you what you did. And if you don't have an answer, I'm going to come back the next week and I'm going to ask you what you did. If you don't have an answer, I'm going to come back. And eventually, you're going to get the idea that I'm not going to leave you alone. Well, eventually you will understand that I'm not going to leave you alone until you do something. I have a friend who's a coach, and he's a very high paid coach. We coaches way higher executives than I ever did. And these guys pay him in the six figures. And he'll meet up with these guys, these CEOs. They'll come to him one week and he'll say, okay, here's what I want you to do. Here's what you've got to do. And then they'll come back to him the next week and he'll go, okay, did you do the thing? And they'll say, nope, I had other stuff that came up. I had other stuff that got in the way. I didn't do the thing. Harassment is necessary, yes. And he'll go, okay, well, this call is over and you can book your next call with me when you do the thing that I told you to do. Because if you're not going to listen to my advice, you're not going to take my advice, then why bother to meet with me at all? So that accountability, it's a key factor. My husband harasses me about posting a schedule. See, you've got an accountability partner. That's good, kitty cat. I like that. I like that very much. Well, he did at one point a couple weeks ago. So consistency is key. Consistency is key in everything. Maintaining consistency on everything. It's so hard, but it is the key. So I look back at that and I say, okay, I didn't do it good enough. I need to do it. How can I create accountability to myself? Well, I know myself. And one thing that I know about myself is that one of the ways that I can create accountability for myself is put things on a calendar. I know that if I put things on a calendar and I look at that calendar every day, that I have a discipline that says I'm going to get those things done. Now, here's the caveat. You may not be somebody who works really well that way. I'm not saying this is universal. Some people, they look at their calendar and they're like, oh my gosh, like look at all of this stuff I have to do every day. And I have, this exact thing. And I have all of these tasks and they're all so detailed. Let me suggest to those of you who are like that, there's a method that we use that's called time blocking. And it's time blocking. Instead of creating deadlines for yourself, you block out a period of time on any day or given set of days. And you say, okay, I'm going to work on this thing. Maybe it's videos, right? I'm going to work on video creation for 1 hour every day. And then you just put that time block on your calendar. And there's no expectation of how much your output is. It's just for that hour, that's what you're going to focus on. So if like very specific task listing doesn't work for you, try time blocking, because it really does work for people who are a little more free flowing. Well, she started posting the schedule weekly. See, if she starts posting the schedule weekly, then you don't have to harass her anymore. That's good. I like that. So that's an example of something that I didn't do that I could have done, right? Another example that I look back on. So I look back at last year and I think, what drove some of the success that I had last year? What drove some of my higher attended streams? And I look back last year and I did more event streams last year. I did a few more event streams. So this year, I've let some other schedules get in the way, and I haven't done that as much because there's a lot of energy that goes into planning those streams out the way that I do them. It's not something that I just go live and now we're going into a 12-hour stream. Kat doesn't like time blocking. We recently made a weekly calendar of our day. She just got overwhelmed. Well, I mean, maybe that's not the system for you, but I would also urge to keep it loose. Just keep it really loose. Like, all right, for 30 minutes a day, I'm going to work on whatever it is, right? For 30 minutes on Monday, I'm going to work on writing my schedule out, right? I really did. So the key is to find the system that works for you. Maybe that's not it. I've used bullet journaling with people. I've used time blocking. I've used calendaring. The key is you've got to have some way to track what it is that you're getting done. My other thing is this. Here's just a little. This is kind of a sidebar. But for those of us who tend to get overwhelmed by large lists of tasks, and I would say this for anybody, when you're going into your day, when you're going into the start of your day, start out with just 2 priorities. Just 2 priorities, and not 2 priorities in every area, not 2 priorities in business, in streaming, in school. No, 2 priorities, and get those done. Just get those 2 priorities done. And then if you don't get anything else done the rest of the day, that's okay. Get those 2 priorities done. And don't add to those priorities unless you get them done. So if I've got a third thing that I want to get done, I don't put that on my list until I've got the first 2 things done. Make a promise to yourself that you're going to be targeted, that you're going to work on what's most important, that you're going to define what's most important, and find out how keeping track of that works for you. Because I, honestly, with the kids and my ADHD, I lose track of time or get distracted very easily. I went overboard. I time blocked the whole day. That could be slightly overboard, especially for somebody who does have attention issues. Trust me, I run after every shiny thing that happens. I understand. And trying to focus on still a challenge, but trying. That's okay. Hey, you're trying, right? You're trying. You're doing your best, Kat. That's what's most important. Is that I take it back. What's most important is that you're doing something about it. And that's so when I talk about my failure over the course of the last year, what I'm talking about is there are things that I've known I had to do that I didn't do anything about. And that is a failure. That right there is a failure. If I know that there is something that I should be doing and I'm not doing it and I don't do it, then I don't do anything about it. That's failure. That's failure of the worst kind, but still a failure that I can learn from, right? Because now I know I didn't have the systems in place to make sure that I did what I needed to do. So now what do? I'm going to go back. I'm going to examine my systems. I'm going to block out time for those things, and I'm going to work at it, and I'm going to persist because I know I can do those things. I know they're possible. I was doing them 2 years ago, and I stopped. I got comfortable. I got complacent. Now I know better, right? I came in at the right time. Welcome in, Phoenix. It's good to see you, my friend. Very good to see you. I hope all is well, sir. We were just talking about my failure over the last year. And specifically, and again, I'm saying this a little bit for effect, but the fact that if you were to look at my viewership numbers over the course of 24 months, they haven't grown significantly. And so while growth of viewership is not the only thing that I care about, we're using it as a framework of how to deal with when things don't grow the way that we want to. And so the first thing that I was saying is you've got to look back over the period and you have to decide, what was it that I didn't do? What was it that I knew I should have done that I didn't do? And that's the first thing. And then how do I build systems to be able to do that in the future? And Kitty Cat came in with a great example. One of the things that she saw that she was doing that wasn't leading to the success that she wanted is that she wasn't scheduling consistently. And so she found accountability. John, her husband, was helping her out by harassing her until she got her schedule posted every week. And now she gets her schedule posted every week. That's progress. That's forward movement. That's growth right there. Same, I need to schedule consistently. That's the number one thing. And honestly, scheduling consistently, it's the easiest thing you can do. It's the easiest thing you can do in your life is schedule consistently. Find things that you do at the same times, right? For me, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I always know where I'm going to be. Now, sometimes those things they're going to adjust, and that's going to happen. But as a baseline, that's my week. And it's been my week. It's been my week for 3 years. Now, again, maybe we could say, hey, I should do some analysis on that and figure out if I've really got the right days locked in. But I also am constrained by the rest of my life, which we all are. So until we're ready to go full time doing this or doing whatever other business you're starting, I'm using streaming because it's something a lot of us have in common. But this could be any side hustle that you want that you eventually want to turn into a full business. If you really want to do that, then you're going to have to be consistent with it. Big deal. The second thing that I can look at is, so I look at what didn't I do that I should have? And then the second thing I can look at is what did I do that maybe I shouldn't have? Completely agree. Awesome. What didn't I do that maybe I should have? And this comes down to where didn't I live up to the values? And so I kind of look back and I looked again at what I had done over the previous couple of years, and I'd seen some growth. And then what I didn't do over the course of the last year. And I thought, well, you know what? One of the things that I did do that I probably shouldn't have is I focused on making content that was making me comfortable, right? And I didn't really branch out and try other things that might attract new people. Keeping in mind that I believe it's justifiable for you to create an expected experience. Like, I'm never going to change Saturday. Saturday is going to be random acts of piracy until I die because I know that people show up for that. People like that. It's consistent. It's my it's consistently my highest ranking stream of the week, and it really, really works. But I've got several other streams over the course of the week that maybe I should have looked at. And the reason I didn't look at them was because I was comfortable with them, because I knew how to do them. But maybe there's a different way. Maybe there's something else I should have done. So I didn't examine that. So what I did do that I shouldn't have done is I stuck with what was comfortable because it was comfortable. Pushing yourself out of that comfort zone is super important. I read the story of Oprah Winfrey and how, when she was young, she grew up in kind of a rough place, and then she got into news anchoring. She was actually demoted from an anchor position at some point. And there was a point in her life where she made the decision that if she was going to progress in her career and in her growth, she was going to have to leave everything behind that she knew and was comfortable with. That meant leaving behind the place where she had lived her whole life. It meant leaving family behind. It meant leaving all of her ties behind. And she admits when she talks that all of that was one of the biggest challenges of her early career. But when she made that separation, when she pushed herself out of that comfort zone a little bit, that was when she got the job on a little like no-name talk show that eventually became the Oprah Winfrey Show and blew up. She wasn't prepared for that moment until she got herself into a place where she was uncomfortable. So what I need to do, I know that I need to focus on social media growth. That's big for me. I also know that I need to examine my content strategy. And I need to figure out where I'm too comfortable, and I need to push myself. Hey, Coach Grizzle, what's up, dude? I'm glad you're lurking. I hope you are well as well. I hope everything's going well, my friend. I hope the podcast is doing amazing things. I see you live more often. I like that a lot. Really good. So what didn't I do? What did I do? What didn't I do that I should have? What did I do that I shouldn't have? And then also you could say, what did others do? Or what are others doing that's working? I address this in my book that hopefully will come out later on this year. That one of the three things that keep our lives small is that we believe that there's some kind of a real world, right? And in this real world that we live in, nobody else's learnings apply. So if somebody's doing something and they just blow up, then it worked for them, but they kind of got lucky. That probably won't work for me, right? So if we live in that world, then we believe in the first myth, which is that success happens by accident. And if success happens by accident, then there's nothing I can do to create success. But if I believe that, then why bother doing anything? Because if I don't have any agency in my own success, then why not just give up now? So I don't believe that. And I do believe that you can learn from the examples of others. So who are you looking at? Who are your role models? Who are the people who have shown growth? Or who are the people who are doing better or are progressing in whatever it is you want to do? Streaming, your career, your relationship. Who are the people who are great at that? And how much time are you spending paying attention to them? And I'll tell you, my time paying attention to people who are bigger than me has fallen way off. That's something else that I let go. I'm not paying attention to what the people who are bigger are doing. And again, it's not because I want to be like them, but it's because I want to be cognizant of what works or what's working in the space so that I can try it and see if it fits with what I do, possibly, or something like it. Tal, speaking of comfort zones, how do we prepare for public speaking? I feel trauma from my childhood about this. We're got a new job focusing on the ATM. Nice. On that at the moment, not ATM. If you're focusing on the ATM, then listen, it's very simple. You put the card in, you punch the numbers, you get the cash, and then you step away. Okay. Don't focus on the ATM. Congrats on the new job, though. Tal, you ask an excellent question. Let's shift gears. How do you prepare for public speaking? It's okay to be nervous when you're public speaking, when you're getting ready to public speak. Everybody is nervous when they get ready to public speak. They get ready to speak in public. I don't. And I am saying that not because I want to tell you, hey, I'm some kind of a superhuman being that just doesn't get nervous when he goes out to speak in front of people. But I don't get nervous. But there's a very specific reason that I don't get nervous. And it's this. First of all, I've been speaking in public to relatively large audiences since I was 8 years old. So I have way more reps in than most people do of my age. So that's one thing to know. So if you want to know how to become less nervous, the first thing I can recommend to you is reps. Do it as much as you can, whenever you can. Every opportunity that you get to speak in front of people, speak in front of people. That's the first thing. Reps will help. The second thing is this. And I learned this from being in theater. I learned that what other people experience as stage fright, I was able to reclassify as excitement. Because anxiety and excitement around things like public speaking and acting on stage are almost indistinguishable to the body. So learn to retrain your mind to read that nervousness as excitement. And here's how you can do that. When you're speaking in public, you have a very, very unique opportunity. You have a magical opportunity, and that is to present your message to the world, to present your message to an audience, and to present your message to the world. This is the moment where you have the greatest ability to impact the lives of those around you with your message. So you should be excited about that. That's a great opportunity. Most people don't get that opportunity. So learn to recalculate your anxieties as excitement. Now, the other end of it is this. You must be prepared. How do we prepare ourselves when we're anxious? You must be prepared. You have to know your message inside and out. What I do not recommend writing it out and memorizing it. It's the first thing I don't recommend. If you're going to speak to people, you need to connect with people. If you're going to connect with people, there's got to be some kind of an organic flow to it, right? When I talk to you here on Thursdays or any other day, none of this is scripted, right? I have some notes that I wrote down about some of the stories that I wanted to tell. Let's see, hold on. Um, Style, I'll get to that in just a second. That's I read the first part of your question and I love it. So prepare, know your message inside and out, and then use a very simple structure. Don't try and say too much. Right? If you have 10 minutes to talk, we'll have one point. Just one really good point. Tell a story about that point, give the point, and then give people a way to apply it. So like today, for example, this is the application. My story is this. I failed over the course of the last 24 months. I failed to grow viewership of this channel. Here's my story. I blew up when I first started, and I got from 1 to 15 very, very easily. Then I stabilized. I landed. Didn't progress further. That's my story. Now, here is the principle. The principle is, let's dissect how to deal with failure. What didn't I do? What did I do? And what are others doing, right? That's how I dissect. And now let's take it through to the application. For you, right, what can you do? If you're finding yourself in an area of failure, first of all, ask yourself those 3 questions. Then decide what structures, what disciplines are going to move the needle on those things. So, for example, with me, I let my social media drop off. So I'm going to create myself a calendar. I'm going to create myself a calendar item so that every week, starting with 1 day a week, I'm going to force myself to work on social media for an hour. That's where I'm going to start, and I'm going to grow it from there. Second thing is, I got complacent with my content strategy. Well, what can I do? I can start researching what content might be better, right? I could start testing things and see how they work, see how you guys like them, see if they draw other people in. And then last but not least, I stopped paying attention to what other people were doing. I didn't spend enough time watching other streams. What can I do? Well, when I have a few minutes throughout the day, or more importantly, if I can be intentional throughout the week, I'm going to jump into those streams and I'm going to at least lurk, pay attention to what people are doing who are more successful than I am in this area where I want to grow, right? So there, I've given you a story, I presented you a principle, and then I provided you an application for that principle. Very, very simple. Focus on that structure when you're speaking in public, and you will not go wrong. You have to do a presentation in 3 weeks, so thank you for the advice. It's a group of 3 coworkers. Tal, if you'd like any help at all in developing that, please let me know. I'm glad to assist. Communications coaching is one of the things that I do, and so I would be glad to assist you as a friend, of course. All right, let's get to Styles' question. Not trying to distract, so answer when you can. Have you seen things recently talking about women displaying masculine energy, and their partners are meant to be there for them to enable them to give feminine energy, taking away the pressure in some way, I suppose? Obviously, not very inclusive. They're trying to offend anyone by wording it like that. So, have you seen the things recently talking about women displaying masculine energy and their partners are meant to be there for them, to enable them to give feminine energy? So here's what I think about this style. Without jumping too deeply into gender politics and traditional gender role, what I think is that we worry too much about masculine and feminine energy. We worry too much about what I should be like based on the category that I'm in. So if I'm a woman, if I identify as a woman, then there are certain ways that I have to be. Or if I identify as a man, there are certain ways that I have to be. What I think is that's more important than leaning into the definition of our gender, or the definition of our presentation, or the definition of really any other role, is that all of that should take a back seat to me being the best version of me that I can. So what's important, what's less important is what kind of energy I have, whether it's masculine, feminine. I would argue that we have indeed created definitions. There are definitions of what could be seen as masculine and what could be seen as feminine. If you don't believe that, you're wrong. I mean, there are societal definitions of those things. So whether or not they're accurate or just or right or anything else, that's not the argument. those are there. So I'm less concerned about the gendered energy that someone puts off than I am about the ability for a partnership to support each individual partner's ability to be the best version of themselves, right? So my wife, for example, she is someone who's really, really good at coming up with ideas and executing. She's really, really good at those two things. I am not really good at those two things. I'm okay at coming up with ideas, but if I don't have to, I won't do it. And I'm definitely not good at execution. I have no tenacity. It is really hard for me to get things over the finish line. So, in our partnership, in our relationship, I rely heavily on her to carry me through those areas, to keep me motivated through those areas, to challenge me when I need to be challenged. And on the other hand, I have a tendency to be hyper aware of the way that people are feeling, of the way that people are interacting, because communication is one of my key areas of focus. I am very pattern aware. I can see how dots connect without having a lot of data about it. And so she relies on me to help fill in the gaps sometimes on some of the human quotients, right? When she needs to get into some of the stickier, more human things. Now, you could somebody could look at those things and they could classify those as gendered roles that were backwards almost, right? Sometimes stereotypically we would expect the female to be the one who is more into kind of the feeling thing and the male to be the person who is more driving towards the result. Right? If you go listen to any comedian, that's how they're going to stereotype men and women. But the fact of the matter is, we discovered early on in our relationship that this was how we operated, and as a result, we operate as a team. We operate in tandem. And I'm not worried about what that looks like. What I'm worried about is that it works and that it guides and directs each of us to be the best version of ourselves. Because I am better when I am with her than when I am without her. Because I am more complete with her than I am without her because she has skills, talents, and abilities that I don't have, right? And vice versa. So that's how I kind of think about that. I do worry. It's really easy for it to run off into masculine and feminine and male and female, and then all the definitions of those things, right? It's really easy for us to fall into that. But really, at the end of the day, the question to me is: are you in a partnership that it's enabling you to be the best version of yourself, no matter what that looks like? That's my answer on that. Ali Man once told me some great advice about public speaking. It reminded me of that you're giving a presentation or demonstration, you're the expert in the room. They're there to listen to you and your knowledge. It helped me with imposter syndrome as well. That's really good. It's true. It's the concept of the captive audience is kind of a thing, guys. The fact of the matter is, here on Twitch, if you get tired of listening to me, you can just leave, right? And nobody will know. Nobody will ever know if you're not, if you're not directly interacting. But in a room, when you're actually presenting in a room, it's pretty unusual that people are going to get up and leave. So going in with the knowledge and the confidence that you're the one who has something to say, that's exactly right. That's great advice. Again, not trying to jump. No, you jump in style. This is meant to be a conversation. This is not a presentation. This is not for me to come in and talk and give a speech to you guys. Now, I'll do a little bit of speechifying every once in a while, especially if people don't feel comfortable or don't want to speak up. Then I'm going to talk because I don't want to sit here and just have you stare at me. Nobody wants to stare at this. Let's be honest about that. But I appreciate the interaction. Thank you, Orpheus, of course. Preach, couldn't agree more. Let's go. Let's go. That was an excellent answer. Well, thank you, Tal. I appreciate that. I appreciate it very much. Oh, I'll speak. I do know you'll speak. That is exactly right. It is meant to be about the partnership, but with weird titles. Ultimately, the team is what makes a difference. As long as you can both offer something to make the team work. I agree 100%. Here's the interesting thing. Relationships that fall apart are relationships that fall out of tension. And for those of you who are newer, a lot of people will talk about balance, trying to achieve balance in their life. Well, work-life balance, 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 balance. I don't believe that the universe was designed in balance. I believe that the universe is designed in tension. If you look at it, everything exists in tension. The force of gravity is not balance, it's tension. Because if the exact right amount of push or pull was off of the planetary body that is the Earth and versus the body that is the sun, then we don't exist anymore. We have a very narrow band of conditions that we as human beings can exist in. And if that tension isn't perfectly maintained, we cease to exist. Well, I believe that all of the universe is designed in systems of tension. And so relationships that fall apart are relationships that fall out of tension. Because in a relationship, there are two people. There's one person here, there's one person here. And stretched in between these two people is that relationship. And when I try to move the middle mark too far towards myself or vice versa for too long, what happens is that tension goes out of whack. When that tension goes out of whack, everything breaks, right? It's going to snap. So the idea is maintaining perfect tension. And there's the ability to travel along that internal rubber band there between the two people. Sometimes I need more, sometimes she needs more. That's just the way it is. But at the end of the day, it's maintaining the tension. So sometimes I got to come closer to her because she needs more of what I have, right? And sometimes she's got to come closer to me because more often she needs to come closer to me because I'll be honest, I'm a lot needier than she is. Um, absolutely. Feel like the titles are meant to separate. Titles are meant to name, right? And historically, we control things by naming them. The way that we control things is by naming them. And so, if you look at again, if you go back to the biblical story of creation, whether you believe it or not, it's neither here nor there. It stands on its own as a creation myth, as there are many more. Um, One of the first things that God in that narrative says is he goes to the humans and he's like, "Hey, here's all the animals. I want you to give them a name." And the narrative actually says that he gives humanity dominion, or he gives humanity the ability to rule over or to lead all of the earth. And a part of the way that that leadership happens is by naming things. So sometimes naming things is important because we have to be able to, we're built to understand things in systems. And when things fly too far out of system, then chaos ensues. There's a necessary order. So titles, a lot of times, they are necessary, right? If you work in an organization and nobody knows who is responsible for the end decision, I will tell you as an expert in the field, that organization is going to fail. But at the same time, if the title is an end unto itself, then the organization will fail. Because if the president is so concerned about being the president that he or she forgets what it means to be a part of the organization, then the organization will fail. It will fall. Dinner time here. Thanks for the message, OQ. Later, taters. Take care. Head of steel. And in fact, that is it for me. It is 3:00. I'm going to head on out too. My friends, thank you for hanging out with me today. It has been an absolute blast. I appreciate you as I always do.